St. Thomas University Journalism and the New Brunswick Beacon present The Basement Files.
Hi, welcome to this week's edition of The Basement Files. I'm Brandon Rainey.
I'm Elizabeth MacArthur. Here are today's top stories.
We look at a new Organigram grow operation in Moncton.
And revisit the possible amalgamation of the Stanley schools.
And take a look at new immigration policies. The City of Moncton is home to one of Canada's only all-organic medical marijuana growth facilities. Organigram opened in 2014, and the CEO says they have 30 employees and are hoping to hire 15 to 20 more in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Sean McCullum joins us from Moncton. Sean?
Thanks, Brandon. There are approximately 4,000 marijuana plants growing in this facility behind me. But this isn't an undercover grow operation. This is Organigram, an all-organic medical marijuana company that has job opportunities budding in Moncton.
So over here what we have is our flowering stage.
Organigram has been operational since March of 2014. The medical marijuana company is looking to hire 15 to 20 new hands in the coming weeks. Organigram is struggling to keep up with the increasing demand for their products, a demand that CEO Dennis Arsenault says is due in part to the company's all-organic policy.
We feel very comfortably that at the end of the day, in terms of the quality of the product, in terms of the user experience, will be superior with an organic product.
Arsenault says that medical marijuana users are keen on Organigram's products. So keen, in fact, that there's a waiting list of patients looking to get their medication.
We're currently in a great situation where our product is selling out. I think we're approaching 30 employees now, and we'll be hiring probably another 15, 20 in the next 4 to 6 weeks at the max. So, you know, it's been growing very quickly. It's some very high-paying jobs.
Nico Haché is Director of Operations.
So over here what we have is our stock plants.
Haché was in the horticulture industry and used to grow roses and vegetables. Nowadays, he grows marijuana.
I take it just like a horticulture crop, and a plant's a plant, you put it in a pot.
Haché says that he likes the challenge of growing medical marijuana and enjoys that it helps people with physical and mental conditions.
I like the fact that it is a regulated industry because now we have norms to follow and rules, and the medicinal aspect is great. If we can help out as much as we can, bonus for everybody.
Arsenault says that his products help people suffering from epilepsy, anxiety, arthritis, and post-traumatic stress disorder.
What we do have, for example, with PTSD, is our soldiers and people that suffer with PTSD clearly screaming from the highest mountaintop that it alleviates their symptoms to a large degree.
In 2014, RCMP Corporal Ron Francis was forced to resign after being filmed smoking prescribed marijuana in uniform. On October 6th of that year, he took his own life. Constable Julie Rogers-Marsh of the RCMP says that they now have no problems with individuals using medical marijuana.
As a policing agency, there are no concerns or issues with regards to individuals who have a prescription for medicinal marijuana and are using it under the care of a doctor.
Arsenault says that there's a lot of potential in the medical marijuana industry for Canada, and he hopes that Organigram will soon be able to accommodate all those patients who are currently on the waiting list. Brandon?
Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but is Organigram the only medical marijuana facility in New Brunswick?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And Organigram is actually currently the only medical marijuana grower east of Ottawa. And they're currently serving patients all across Canada, and he says that's due to the strictly organic.
Thanks, Sean. That was Sean McCullum from Moncton, New Brunswick.
After months of consultations and meetings, the decision has been made on the fate of the two schools in Stanley. The Department of Education Council is recommending that the elementary and high school in the small village of Stanley amalgamate. Jordan Gill has more on the story.
All those in favor of the motion, which is maintaining the status quo at the Stanley Complex, raise your right hand. Contrary, same sign. Contrary. Motion is defeated.
100 years of two schools in Stanley may have ended with a vote of 8 to 4. The District Education Council has decided to recommend to the Minister of Education the amalgamation of the two schools. Nola Carr is a member of the Stanley High School Parent School Support Committee.
Well, I'm disappointed. It's not the result that I was hoping for. I was in attendance at all of the required meetings, and I felt that there was a very strong case for leaving the status quo in the schools.
Parents, students, and community members have waged a vigorous campaign to save the two schools. In the end, the province's pocketbook took precedence.
If we didn't have limited budgets and we didn't have declining enrollments, then our choices are a lot easier. But given our responsibility to education, this decision was made, and it was not taken lightly.
Some community members are skeptical of this position. They point to a motion tabled requesting extra money for improvements to the Stanley School. Mark Foreman is the mayor of Stanley.
Same old thing. I mean, they're trying to save money. I realize that. But if they're saving $50,000 and on the other hand they're asking the Minister of Education for money to do renovations to accommodate this change, I think it's defeating their purpose on saying they're trying to save money.
The responsibility of informing the Minister of Education now falls to Anglophone School District West Superintendent David McTimoney.
Tonight they have presented a mandate, and now I have the responsibility to roll it out. I remain committed to quality education.
All hope is not lost for the two schools. The minister must respond to the recommendation in 60 days. Both the PSSC and the Village Council have said they will appeal directly to the minister. For St. Thomas Journalism, I'm Jordan Gill.
Potash Corp's mines at Penobscot have a significant impact on the New Brunswick economy, but not without a cost. Citizens allege that mining caused the ground to sink up to 1 meter in certain areas. Johnny Collin investigates.
Penobscot is sinking. You might not be able to tell at first glance, but the ground around Potash Corp's 2 mines is shifting in a process called subsidence. To say citizens are concerned is an understatement. Houses have been damaged. Fields that were once valuable cropland are now flooding where they didn't before. Roads and railways in the town have cracked and shifted. Residents of Penobscot say these problems are all because of subsidence. Potash Corp says this is not the case. With the construction of the new Piccadilly mine, citizens allege the ground is shifting even more. But is mining really the root of the problem? Beth Nixon is a concerned citizen of Penobscot. She was active in the town's legal battle against Potash Corp in 2011 after experiencing issues with her land and water. She says these issues are linked to the mine.
These people redid their septic system twice in the last 6 or 7 years. These people lost their swimming pool to a big sinkhole. It's all documented in natural resources files.
Wow.
This was the house we lived in before we moved over to my parents' place.
Yeah.
And we had problems with the septic system there, and we lost our water, but now it's on the water system.
Those people lost their water and their swimming pool, you said?
Yes.
They're going to be interesting. We should try and
they won't talk about the swimming pool.
No?
No. It's interesting that they don't talk about the sinkhole and the swimming pool, but it's all documented in natural resources files.
And they won't admit it, though, if you ask them to.
Right, but think about why they wouldn't do that.
Does one of them work in the mine?
Oh, his firm contracts to the mine, but there's you have signed a confidentiality agreement. Yeah. A lot of these places have had different problems where maybe the ground's falling away from basements, or they've had issues with septic systems, and they've pretty much all lost their water.
In an email, the general manager of Potash Corp NB said, "We do not believe our operation is connected to the water loss." Complaints of subsidence were found to be unsubstantiated by the commissioner at the time. We have nothing new to add to this matter. This table is usually reserved for good friends and a bottle of rum, but tonight, there's a more serious issue on the table.
My experience with subsidence is here in the house, is the fact that I have a tile kitchen floor, and every day there seems to be a new tile that's either cracked or, it's just not before. I mean, I've had the tile down probably 10 years, and I can't wait to get rid of it because it breaks my heart, because I think I put all that money into a tile floor, and it just keeps you look and there's a tile over here that's cracked, and then the next day you go over and there's another one over here that's cracked. And it was expensive to put it down. I see the changes in the landscape.
Chris says that while taking her dog Jake for walks, she's noticed damages to roads and sidewalks. Chris doesn't think Potash Corp is only responsible for damages to her home and the village infrastructure.
I know there's a farm in the area that they've got 20 acres of land that they can't hay, they can't use because it's underwater.
You can see there's where it's bowing out in the wall here, and then there's a crack that comes down here.
Meet Heather McCabe. She runs a sanctuary for dogs and cats in Penobscot. Along with damages to her walls, she claims subsidence has also taken its toll on her back deck, regardless of the cement stabilizer poles that were drilled below the frost line.
Point where the back steps actually had moved to the point where they blocked the door and we couldn't open the door.
In addition to damages to doors and windows, Heather has also discovered something a little more alarming.
We had 2.5-inch drop in our roof, like a dip, and then there was a spot in the roof where it went up 1.5 inches. So my value on my house when I bought it for the government property assessment was $67,000. Within 3 years of us buying it, it was down to $18,000.
People would like to receive compensation from Potash Corp for damages, but last time they went to court, things didn't unfold the way they planned.
We feel that we really weren't given our day fairly. We were outgunned, outmaneuvered, outmoneyed, big time. We didn't stand a chance. You know, we didn't stand a chance, and that I think that's why people are still upset about it, is because they don't feel that they were given a fair shake at it.
Chris says that hiring a better lawyer wasn't an option, since 80% of the citizens involved were seniors on a fixed income. She also says she would have liked to hear from subsidence experts that had no affiliation with the potash industry.
It's big business, it's greed, and that's what it all boils down to. It's the almighty dollar and greed, and they've got way more money and way more power than the average person does, and you don't realize how powerful they are until you go up against them, and you realize that they have very long arms and very deep pockets.
The citizens of Penobscot are disappointed with how they've been treated by Potash Corp. They don't necessarily want to get rid of the mine. It employs many local residents and funds community activity committees. But they do want Potash Corp to pay for damages to land and private property. Johnny Cullen, Stu Journalism, Penobscot.
The Canadian government introduced new immigration policies in January. The new super visa opens the door for homesick immigrants and their parents. Yi Fan looks at how the visa will affect the province and its citizens.
There is a new policy under the Harper government that makes the amount of time needed for incoming immigrants to be in Canada while applying for permanent residency and citizenship longer. But at the same time, a newly implemented super visa can be extended to family back home and allows parents and grandparents to come to Canada for up to 10 years, in which time the parents could apply for permanent residency or Canadian citizenship. These two new policies have Fredericton immigrants rethinking their long-term plans in Canada. Sha Wang is a fourth-year university student and Chinese immigrant who is looking to apply for permanent residency now that she has to look for a job.
I want to apply a PR, the permanent resident status, given the complicated process and time-consuming process to apply a visa to come from China to Canada. I think it's better, like after graduate, since there is a advantage for international students to apply a permanent resident status after graduation. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do.
China does not support dual citizenships, so Wang says permanent residency is the best way to maintain her connection with her home country.
It's very likely my parents will come over to visit me. It's easier for them now because of this super visa. And even like I see, even if I have to change my status from a PR to a citizen, I can have a Chinese super visa, so I can go home multiple times within 10 years.
Others, like Indian immigrant Rabina Singh, are applying for the dual citizenship and will have to deal with the longer wait times.
No, I do plan to stay on in Canada. It's because part of my family is already settled here. So I would like to pursue my career here after I complete my degree. And I want to take up a job here.
The new policy has increased the amount of time someone needs to be in Canada while applying for permanent residency from 2 out of 5 years to 3 out of 6 years, and for Canadian citizenship upped it from 3 out of 5 years to 4 out of 6 years. The super visa creates the possibility for New Brunswick to increase its population.
I do suspect that we might be applying because I would want my mom to be there with us, both of us. So I think so. We might. I'm not really sure about that. It's literally a long drawn process, I guess, for now. It's like a it's like a long-sighted vision for me right now to think about super visa. But it is a likely option for me because I would definitely want my parents to be with me. So.
Wen Tingshu is a third-year communication student at St. Thomas University. Her parents are two people who are applying for super visa, and she plans to apply for Canadian citizenship despite China's stance.
My parents may move to Canada as well, and they may invest a small business in New Brunswick, or they just came to Canada for 6 months, then go back to China. They not decide yet.
The Maritimes has always had problems attracting immigrants. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Maritimes had 13% of the total Canadian population and only 3.6% of its immigration population. But with an aging average population, New Brunswick has a real need to increase its immigration population. For Still Journalism, I'm Yifan.
A new bill that hopes to increase the access to local produce in New Brunswick has been proposed in the legislature. Green Party leader David Coon supports the bill, and local farmers are eagerly awaiting a decision. Joe Tunney reports.
The Local Food Security Act will provide clearer labeling for locally produced foods and make schools, hospitals, and other government buildings choose New Brunswick produce before that of other provinces, if passed. The bill won't reach the Legislative Assembly until later this month, but Green Party leader David Coon thinks interest from other MLAs is high.
I think given the content of the bill, both the government side and the official opposition, if they didn't support it, would actually have to explain to New Brunswickers what's the problem. Like, why would you not support this?
If the bill passes, then it could open up new opportunities for consistent sales of produce from within the province and increase the profitability of the agricultural section. While Coon is optimistic for the bill's future, he's realistic too.
I'm hoping that in the end it will pass. It may be amended in the process, and that's the way it works. But even with amendments, I'd be very pleased if it was passed and enacted in law.
Ted Wiggins and his wife own a farm outside of Harvey Station, and he is on the board of directors for the National Farmers Union of New Brunswick. He's been farming for over 20 years and thinks the bill will benefit more than just farmers.
I think the bill should be pushed forward. I think it's good for the province as a whole, but I think it's especially good for rural New Brunswick because if we want to maintain people in the rural areas of the province, we've got to be able to provide opportunities for them. And farming is one opportunity. And the more farmers we can have and people working for farmers and supplying farmers, the better chance rural New Brunswick has of prospering.
Many farmers in the province rely on selling their product at farmer markets and small local grocery stores. And for Wiggins, the term local needs to be redefined.
Right now, the term local is almost meaningless. It can be something that's imported from thousands of miles away, and still some stores will claim that it's local.
For St. Thomas Journalism, I'm Joseph Tunney.
People are stuck between renting an apartment or buying their own condo in the housing market. Multiple factors come into play when deciding on where to live. Keenan Marceline explores the choices between renting or buying.
Kyle McAllister is landlord and owns his own apartments. This is his third apartment building in the Fredericton area. Being in the business behind making apartments, he would rather have people rent for obvious reasons.
From our company standpoint, down long term, it's worth more money for us to rent out the buildings and maintain them and keep them rather than sell off each individual unit and make a quick little smaller amount of money. So if we hold on to the rentals over years and years and years and maintain them and rent them, it's worth more money to us.
McAllister's construction crew members although building an apartment unit, have also spent the same amount of time helping build condos in the area as well. Robert Hamilton is a construction worker on site, and he said if he could go back in time, he would have chose to live in a condo over an apartment.
Into it, and it's yours. Once you leave, if you decide to leave, then you can sell it and make a profit. Whereas you're paying rent, if you're paying a rent in an apartment, you're not getting that money back.
When buying or renting, there are pros and cons to both that can make someone think a certain way about a living situation. When renting, the tenant is not responsible for repairs around the house, and it also gives flexibility to move whenever you want. Some cons include the possibility of rent increase and also not receiving the tax saving that a condo owner would. The condo buyer is also able to build equity in their home. However, homeowners have to keep up with their own repairs and have to pay taxes and insurance on their homes. Equity is, however, the main advantage, as you are still paying down your interest, and not to mention being able to see your home increase in value over a certain time period. Owners receive tax benefits, but renters aren't so lucky. Condo buyers are seeing a number of advantages over those of renters. When we think of condos, we think of the coolest spots to live. This is because they are easily customizable and designer-friendly, meaning you can paint, move walls, and make more dramatic changes. Some of the perks that come with owning a place is having a furry friend. This is Maggie, and she is the main reason why her owner needed to move into a condo. Maxime Blouin is part of the Canadian Armed Forces. Blouin lived in an apartment before he purchased this condo, as he did not have the financial freedom to be able to own his own place.
Basically, if you own it, it's better for you than just like paying your rent every month, and at the end, when you leave, you're gonna put all that money for years and years for no reason. So you're gonna lose that money at the end.
Besides the large upfront cost of the condo being $135,000, Blouin said that putting his own personal touches and people's previous touches are priceless. It seems like condos have all these perks, but not all people can afford such an investment. Another reality is that people who may not quite be ready to invest look for apartments. Students are definitely on that list. Apartments appeal to students better on a financial standpoint and require the least amount of maintenance because of the temporary status of living. Kelty Apperson is a student at St. Thomas University and lives in an apartment building.
There's a lot of limitations on what you can do, and you have noise complaints and stuff because it's not yours, and you have your damage deposit that you don't get back, or you just have a lot of rules that you have to follow, whereas if you were in a condo, you could do whatever you wanted with it, and you probably wouldn't get complaints because it's your home, and it would just, provide a better atmosphere.
Having a market that is always changing, choosing to own is for more of the financial steady and ready. Renting isn't a bad living situation either. It is a good temporary stepping stone to advancing to one day owning your own property. For St. Thomas University Journalism, I'm Kenya Merslin.
The Sisson Mine is one step closer to becoming a reality. The New Brunswick government released an environmental study last week on the proposed mine to be located north of Fredericton. A federal review is underway. The Vancouver-based company says the mine will have a 27-year lifespan. However, they haven't secured the funds to build it. Jordan Gill will take a look at the impacts of the proposed mine to the surrounding communities in the next edition of the Basement Files.